a herpetic lesion. What happens is the nerve endings that innervate that skin become inflamed because of all the viral particles that are coming out of it. Okay, that's how the virus sheds. Whether that indicates now, if you're under stress or something like that, that can cause it because that can trigger the virus to come out of its latent phase. Yeah, go ahead.
So what you're saying is that most, if not everyone, has a form of herpes, and only when a new strand is integrated is when it's
most
apparent.
people have some form, like 50% is infected with oral herpes. Most people get it in their childhood when like their aunt kisses them or something, you know. Fewer people have genital herpes, but it's still a lot. I think the reason to educate people about it is because for the vast majority of people that have it, it is not anything of a big deal at all. You get a couple of red bumps like when you initially get it, and then you basically never have anything again. This is how it works for most people. Some people, though, do have recurrent herpes outbreaks and lesions, and it does cause them significant distress. And then the other thing is, if you have it, the responsible thing to do is to tell a new partner that you have it. Okay, and so it ends up being like a scarlet letter or some reason why people wouldn't want you anymore. And you know, people have committed suicide over it. So it's to be somebody, I forget who it was, because that guy Adam Ruins Everything did an episode about this, about herpes. It's like everybody's got it. No, of course, but the responsible thing is to tell people that you have it if you do, if you're going to have sex with them. But to be human is to be covered with a little red bump.
So a cold sore and an ulcer are two separate things.
Yes, an ulcer is some inflammation where the epidermis is come off.
So how can you tell the difference if you have an ulcer and how can you tell the difference if that's emulsionary or not?
A cold sore usually forms not in the mouth but at the edge.
Okay. So that's what I was confused at.
Yeah.
Like, if someone told me that cold sores and
No, you can get ulcers.
So maybe that's what I meant. Like the ulcer.
Yeah, they call them canker sores as well.
Canker sore is acid reflux.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then disregard what I said.
Okay. All right. So the point I was trying to was talking about these sensory nerves. Now, if you look up in the cervical and the lumbar and the sacral, notice they come together and then form these networks called plexes. And then from there you get peripheral nerves coming off of there. So let's look at those plexes. There's a cervical plexus, a brachial plexus, a lumbar, and a sacral. And for each of those, we're going to look at them and learn some specific nerves from them. Okay, so first we have the cervical plexus, which you'll notice comes from the first 5 cervical spinal nerves. And it forms this network that makes you glad you're not a neck surgeon. It forms a variety of peripheral nerves. Notice it also interacts with some of the cranial nerves. The only nerve of this list that we're going to learn is this one. It's the most medial and inferior. It's called the phrenic nerve. And the phrenic nerve innervates the diaphragm muscle, the main muscle of breathing. You can see it here, this model. Okay. You can also see it in these models. Now these are more or less useless because they might as well be a drawing. It's pancake man. You got a lot of them. But you can, if you feel along his neck, it's sticking up and labeled as phrenic nerve. So that's the cervical plexus. Now we come to the brachial plexus, and this is the one where we have the most to learn. This one goes through the last 8, from C4 to C8, so the bottom of the cervicals, and then the first thoracic. And you can see it forms this network of trunks, which then combine into a network of cords. Now you don't need to know the trunks and the cords, but I think it's useful to look at them initially so you can understand how the nerves form from them. So you've got 2 cords in the front, the lateral and the medial, and then one between and behind them, the posterior cord. So let's follow Let's first follow this lateral cord. We straight out, we see it becomes a nerve called the musculocutaneous nerve. And the musculocutaneous nerve goes into the anterior arm. And what muscles might there need to be innervated in the anterior arm? Brachialis and biceps brachii, and also this one called coracobrachialis, which is not on your list. But those is what innervates. Now it's named musculocutaneous because it also sends a cutaneous branch down the, it's the lateral, yeah. No, it's the medial part of the skin, all the way to the wrist. No, yeah, it's lateral, it's lateral side. Yeah, lateral side all the way down to the wrist, right? So it gets this part of the skin. All right, so that's the musculocutaneous nerve. Now, if we in turn follow the medial cord, we see it becomes a nerve called the ulnar nerve. This is one that most of us are familiar with, even if we don't know it. Alright, so on this model, there's your musculocutaneous. We go to the other side, we see the ulnar nerve. It's running down the medial side of the arm, and then it goes right in between the medial epicondyle and the olecranon in that cleft. Does that bring to mind anything? Funny bone, right? It's not a bone, it's your ulnar nerve. You hit your ulnar nerve, and where does it hurt? It hurts in your pinky, your ring finger, and right there. It innervates the medial side of the forearm, including the flexor muscles on that medial side, and the skin and the joints down there in your fingers. Right? It's those joints that maybe cause the pain. Making you hurt thinking about it?
Why do I feel like going all the way up here?
Well, yeah, it'll also shoot up through there.
Right, you feel like
Yeah, mainly. Next time it happens, just notice it's mainly your
I hope
pinky.
it doesn't, but.
Well, if you have a reflex hammer, it's got a point. I could. Right, so we see it. It's going into the medial forearm. Like so, your flexor carpi ulnaris, for example, will get that medial forearm flexor. Next, we see the branches come off of both the lateral and the medial cord, and they form the median nerve, which runs right up the middle. The arm crossed into the antebrachium and on the radial side. Okay, it's called the median nerve, and it's going to get. There it is. Okay. It's right up the middle. So it's going to get the muscles, flexor muscles more on the radial side here, like your flexor carpi, radial. And then the skin on that lateral side of the anterior of the hand. Part that doesn't hurt when you hit your funny. And then lastly, we have the radial nerve, which is not shown very well on any of these models, but we'll see if this has got it. Yeah, there it goes. There's your radial nerve. It's coming down the back. It's going to get your triceps, and then all of the extensor muscles on the back. I guess that comes off. All the extensor muscles on the back. It's going to get those as well as the skin all on the back of the hand. That is your radial nerve. And then lastly, we have the circumflex or axillary nerve. That one wraps around the head of the humerus. You can see it here on this model. Coming around the side. It's going to innervate that and the deltoid and the skin around the deltoid. That's that deltoid that isn't triggered. All right. Now we come to the lumbar plexus. This one is L1 to L5. You can see it produces a variety of nerves, but there's a couple of nerves we want to learn. First is the femoral. I'm going to use this big model for this. Thought you were done with these things, right? Okay, let's say you're around the spine and you want to get out of the torso, or out of the pelvis and go into the thigh. There's three ways out. You can go out the front, which means you go underneath the inguinal ligament and into the anterior here. And this is the way the femoral nerve goes. And it innervates the anterior thigh muscles. What are those? Quadriceps. It gets those, it gets the skin over them. It also sends a branch called the saphenous branch that runs down the medial side of the lower limb all the way to the foot. And it's going to get the skin all the way down the medial side, right down to your medial malleolus. That's the femoral nerve. That's the gluteus maximus. That's one way to. It's one way to make it smaller. Make a joke. Okay. Now then we have the obturator nerve here. Okay, it comes off that plexus and goes through the obturator foramen. And then it goes into the medial thigh. All right, what muscles do we have in the medial thigh that we might need to innervate? Adductors and the gracilis, and then the skin of the medial thigh. That is our lumbar plexus. Okay? And we finally come to the sacral plexus. See, it produces a variety of nerves. There's three we need to know. Two of them travel initially in the same sheath, and we call them the sciatic nerve when they're together. But really what they are is the tibial nerve and the common fibular nerve. So if I take the hamstrings off, we can see this. So, femoral nerve goes out the front, obturator nerve goes through the obturator foramen, sciatic nerve goes out the back to the greater sciatic notch. Okay, runs down the back of the thigh. Now, the nerve that's operative here in the back of the thigh is the tibial nerve. It's going to innervate the hamstrings, innervate the skin back here. Most of the hamstrings, there's one head of the biceps femoris that doesn't. Most of it, okay, goes through the popliteal fossa and into the back of the leg, tibial nerve. Goes all the way down to the plantar surface of the foot, okay? So it's going to get all those muscles back there and the skin of the back of the foot and then the skin on the bottom of the foot. So when I talked about somebody tickling on the bottom of your longest toe, it's going to travel up your tibial nerve all the way to your spinal cord, and then that axon is going to keep going all the way to your brainstem, actually. Okay. Now down here we see where the sciatic nerve splits. The tibial nerve separates from the common fibular nerve. Common fibular nerve wraps around the lateral side, where it forms a couple of branches that are going to innervate the muscles here on the front of the leg, tibialis anterior, etc. So let's get that skin on top of the foot. Okay? So common fibular, tibial, together they are the sciatic. And then lastly we have the pudendal nerve, which innervates the pelvic floor muscles, but also the skin of the genitals. So this is important for continence and sexual function. And we don't have a whole lot of muscles that show it really well, but it is on here, this little one that's kind of really medial, inferior going into there. So those are our list of nerves that we need to know a function of. All right.